Live your life with intention. Build your career with intention. I see a lot of nodding heads because the actors all know what I'm talking about. Because when you have a protagonist, they have a super objective, something they're always trying to achieve, right? And how many actors do we have here? Oh, a bunch. How many directors? Okay. So the actors and directors know that with intention, when you break a script down, the protagonist has a super objective, but with each scene there is an intention, and it's very simple. What does the character want? Why do they want it? How do they go about achieving it, right? What, why, how? And there's obstacles. There has to be an obstacle, right? Because the obstacles create the drama. And that obstacle can be an antagonist, it can be a circumstance, forces of nature, it can be an inner conflict. But there has to be some kind of conflict, right? So keep that in mind. What, why, how? How many writers do we have here? Any? Oh, good, we got a bunch. I want you to think about what you do. You go into this shamanic-like trance, and you spend time in the spirit ether, imagining characters, envisioning worlds, creating circumstances. And in that world of your imagination, then, you pull that out of your imagination and you put these little scribble marks on a piece of paper or a computer. And these little black or blue squiggly marks on that piece of paper are then handed to other artists. Directors, actors, designers, cinematographers, choreographers, crews, entire crews. And they take your little scribbles and bring them to life on the stage or the screen, right? There is something magical, mysterious, majestic about that, right? It really is. And she mentioned this as a sacred space. There is something sacred about that. So if you can do that with your art, imagine circumstances, create scenes, create characters, why can't you imagine your life? Why can't you imagine your career? Live your life, build your career with intention. Because I've noticed through the years, anyone that failed in the entertainment industry, it was usually because they didn't have a clear concept of what they wanted. They had a general concept, oh, I want to be in show business, I want to do this or that. And I remember when I first moved to New York, and I was defining for myself what I wanted, I asked an actor once, I said, so what do you want to do as an actor? And this person replied, I want to do everything. And I said, well, what does that mean? He says, I want to do everything. And I said, wait, does that mean you want to sing and dance on Broadway? Do you want to act off Broadway? Do you want to be on a half-hour sitcom? Do you want to be on an hour drama? Do you want to do feature film? What do you want to do? He says, well, I want to do everything. Now keep in mind, that is like an incandescent light bulb. You got light going everywhere, right? In all directions. The second you say, I want to sing and dance on Broadway, you gather that light and it becomes a laser beam. And you have that intention, and you have that drive, you have that commitment, you have that picture in your mind, right? And the one thing I want to emphasize, and I wrote this down, I don't have a long speech here, but I just wrote down, tenacity triumphs talent. Because I can't tell you how many really talented artists I know that moved to New York and did not make it as a professional. Because they didn't have the resilience. They didn't have the tenacity. They didn't stick to it. I'll tell you one story. I teach at Columbia. I teach a writing class at Columbia University, how to write TV pilots. And several years ago, I've done a few, so I figured I might as well teach it, right? There was a guy, I'll call him James R. James R. had a lucrative six-figure job on Wall Street. He was a banker. Cushy apartment, good life. By everyone's standard, This guy had made it. And he ended up in my writing class. And I said, what are you doing here? He says, all I want to do in life is write movies, and I want to learn how to write television. He said, that other life, my soul was dying. He said, this is why I'm here. I want to learn how to write TV. Well, I talked to him. I said, then commit to that. Study it. Study every show you have on TV that you like. Watch it. Analyze it. Break it down. How does the structure work? And he did this, and he wrote a pilot in my class, his first one. That pilot got him an agent and then a manager. He moved out to Los Angeles. He sold 2 movies and a pilot, now married with a little kid, little baby, and he's got a writing career. And do you know why? We were having a cup of coffee, and I said, so why did you commit in this way? He says, I don't have a plan B. And I went, this guy's going to make it. He didn't leave himself an out. Oh, I'll try it for a while, and if it doesn't work, he said, I don't have a plan B. And as soon as he said that, I went, this guy, he's going to make it, right? So I want to talk about the mountain. When you leave U of E, go to graduate school, West Coast, East Coast, regional theater, whatever. At the beginning of my career, it felt like I was standing at the bottom of a mountain. And I was going, oh my God, I don't know how to get up there. I want to be up there. I don't know how to get up there. And I was frustrated, and I was unemployed. And then one day during my prayer time, I was praying, thinking, it went, oh, one rock at a time. That's how you get to the mountaintop, one rock at a time. You reach up, you grab this rock, then that rock, and the next rock, and all of a sudden you go, oh, I'm up here. But it's got to be one rock at a time. You don't leap from the bottom of the mountain up here. Now, at the mountaintop, I wrote it down. I'm going back to intention, super objective, and imagination. I wrote down on a yellow pad a 5-year plan. And I went, what is my super objective? What do I really want to do with what I learned at U of E in graduate school? And this is what I wrote on the yellow pad. This was my super objective. I want to create a production company that conceives, writes, packages, and produces new works for television, film, and theater. Conceive of a production company that conceives, writes, packages, and produces new works for television, film, and theater. That was the top of the mountain. So I went back and I said, with the yellow pad, I started scribbling. I go, what's the first rock? And I wrote survival. I had to eat. I had to pay rent. I had to do something. I had done a few commercials when I was in the Midwest, and I thought, okay, that will be how I support myself. And I wrote out, I want to make 3 national commercials. Now, acting in commercials, do any of you have any desire to do that? But I knew I had to do it. So what did I do? I read every day and looked in the mirror, and I practiced reading without bobbing my head or blinking too much. I learned how to hold the product right here and not bob my head and tell you this is the best water you've ever had. And make the camera lens one person. Try it. You're going to like it, right? Now, that wasn't high art, but by gosh, it paid enough money. I could afford to stay in New York City and pursue other things. The first rock, the second rock. I had written out, I want to be on a soap opera for 3 years. I had no desire to be a soap opera star, but I said, I want to be on a soap opera for 3 years because I knew if I had a steady job, I could make enough money, I could direct and write, and it's one step closer to the top of the mountain, a production company. By gosh, I got cast, not in a very good one, and I was a terrible actor. I'm sorry, John David, you tried. No, he really did. He tried. I'm not, but I was on a soap opera for 3 years. And the whole time I was on that soap opera, I was directing plays, and I started writing, moving closer and closer. I don't know where this came from, but one day during my meditation prayer time, I wrote down on the yellow pad, I am going to create 2 #1 television shows. Not 1, 2. And I go, okay, where did that come from? And I wrote that. I went, okay, I'm going to commit to that. How do we begin? I imagined it. I spoke it. The thought becomes words, becomes a thing. After the soap opera, my first job in TV was writing for The Cosby Show. At the time, huge monster hit, #1 show, right? So finally, after you are making a lot of money and you're a writer on a #1 show, an agent decides to represent you. So I had an agent. I had an agency. And after about 2 years into the show, they called me into the office. And these guys were all standing around in their slick suits and their polished shoes and their Rolex watches. And they go, so Matt, what is it you want to do? Where do you see your career going? And I said, I'm going to create a production company that conceives, writes, packages, and produces new works for television, film, and theater. And they said no. They went, no. What we're going to do, we're going to get you a 3-year production deal at one of the studios, Universal, Paramount, one of those. Now, if I hadn't defined for myself what I wanted, I would have listened to them. I wouldn't have a company. They would have stuck me in a trailer on a back lot, and for 3 years, I would write pilots that weren't made. I had defined for myself. I was not swayed by them. One agent said, I know what you want to do. I can help you do it. And Wind Dancer was born. If you don't define for yourself what it is you want as artists and human beings, somebody else will for you. I'm going to wrap up with this. The older I get, the more I realize praying and creating are one and the same thing. And I'm not talking religious dogma. I'm not talking that. I'm talking about the spiritual experience of tapping in. And all you actors, designers, you all know what happens when that flow starts happening. And you go, I have no idea where this is coming from, but I'm going to get it down on paper, or I'm going to move my body this way. Or you walk off stage and go, what just happened? And they say, that's the best performance you've ever had. That is when the divine and the human meet and art is born. So I'll wrap up with this. What do you want to do as artists? And if your answer is, I want to be rich and famous, then you've already failed. Because even if you are rich and famous, you will be miserable. Your art must serve a higher purpose. And you have to define what that purpose is. And you take everything you've learned here, and you're getting a great education here. Take this, go out into the world, and ask yourself, what is my intention? What am I going to do? Why am I going to do it? And how am I going to do it? Amen. All right.